So we're going to go into the Q&A session now. If I could just ask the two of you to put on your cameras, if possible. If not, just have your mic on and mute.
So I can take a few of the Q&As that I see written over there.
Yeah, I'll just walk you through them so that we have some kind of order with that.
Yeah.
So we have Victor's question. He's asking is the solution vendor neutral in terms of routers, switches, access points?
So there are no similar solution. Palo Alto claim to have something, but this is very simple and cannot manage most of the data center requirements, such as VHX and so on. It will be very complicated, any such combination, because there is a lot of knowledge on top of a simple switch or simple load balancer, a lot of knowledge and smart innovation behind it. So you cannot put just few such boxes and expect to get a maestro. So the answer is no. It's a unique solution out there in the market, not to mention the fact that we are providing the overall support and liability for everything within, and you don't have to look between multiple vendors, each one for different box. Which fault is it when something goes wrong?
Next question, Chibuzo, I hope you're there. How do we leverage data security to the protection of data from unauthorized access and data corruption throughout its life cycle, such as data encryption, hashing, tokenization, and key management practices that protect data across all applications and platforms? That's from Maxwell.
Okay, so before we can think about data security, we need to understand where the data is sitting. Before we can think of protecting it, we need to know where it's sitting. Is it in motion? Is it at rest? Or is it in transit? Is it a data sitting in a database or in a server and all that? So we need to understand, but there are different solutions that you can apply on this. You can do encryption. So on our portfolio, we have encryption solutions that you can use to protect data in motion, at rest, and also in transit. And maybe to also prevent access to those data. And you can think of things like privileged access to manage the people that have access to those data. And also, if the data is sitting in a database, you think of a database activity monitoring solution, a database firewall. So there are different areas you can protect data sitting in different places. But the key thing is for us to understand the movement of data, also to define the criticality of that data, how critical it is, because not every data is critical. Not every data you want to choose to protect, but we need to define the critical level of that data and know how to put a solution on how to protect it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chibuzo, sorry. And then another question from Emmanuel. This is for you, Yaron. What is the reasonable lifetime for these devices?
So usually we refresh the lineup of appliances around every 3 or 4 years. And once the appliance is out of sale, we provide additional 5 years of support. So we are talking roughly 9 years of availability and support for all the appliances. The reason we refresh the appliances every 3 years is due to the fact that appliances are all about processing packets as fast as we can. And in order to do so, we need to have the latest and greatest CPUs and hardware to allow it. And you cannot compete or well secure today's networks if you had CPUs 6 or 7 years old. That's why we need to keep the latest and greatest. Also from network connectivity, in small enterprise used to be 1 gigabyte was enough. Today, 10 gigabyte is not enough. So we need also to grow the connectivity. So we need to move in a fast forward pace in order to keep up with the growing security needs and the growing network connectivity needs.
Okay, and then I think this is for you as well, Yaron. Ermias is asking, is there any replacement for those appliances in VM?
Yeah. Also the same question for Simon regarding VM.
Yes.
So we do have, instead of security gateway, we can have a VM-based solution from Checkpoint. We have recommended vendors and configuration that we rely on. in order to ensure that you have the base hardware to support. This is from well-known vendors such as Dell and HP. As of today, we do not have VM supported under Maestro, and the reason is that we do not have any control of the hardware characteristic once it's a VM. In case of Check Point own appliances, we control the CPU and all the resources, and we can manage them. But in case of VM, customer can upgrade on-site whatever they need. We are lack of control and therefore not able to balance the resources accordingly. So the Maestro solution is therefore limited to Check Point appliances only. On a per gateway base, we do have our software running on a third-party servers.
Okay, and then Chibuzo, I think this question, I'll shoot it to you. Tewodos wants to know, is there any data center security provider that are have key values and differentiators? And then can you mention some of the companies you have deployed in? He wants some use cases.
Okay, so for the purpose of this webinar, and also for privacy's sake, we'll not be able to mention customers that we've worked with and also other solutions. But of course, you have my email. You can shoot me an email for that. But let me take a general use case, for example. During the presentation, I mentioned about customers that want to deploy a banking app, right? Or a banking app, core banking application. First of all, for us, we need to sit with the customer to design the security around that to protect that banking application or banking or core banking application. So is not just throwing solutions to it. So we need to look at things like what database is the app going to run on? How do we secure that database? Is there any connectivity? Is it going to be launched on the internet? Is it internet-facing application? How do we protect it from internet-facing threats? So we just need to understand how those solutions are going to be utilized. Then we know the solutions to put across to it. So there are different solutions that we can use to solve different challenges that customers have. So I will not be able to give you specific customers. I cannot mention their names because I need to get authorizations from them before I do all that.
Okay, one more for you, Chibuzo. So Bond Venture says that that you indicated that the solution works between two data centers. Is there a limit on the distance between the two data centers? Okay.
On a general note, our solutions can work both on-prem and on the cloud. So let's take, for example, a customer that wants to move his workloads to the cloud. He wants to move servers to the cloud. So we have solutions like, of course, Check Point has solutions that can protect you on the cloud. As just like the physical firewall that you have, we have one on the cloud. And also, let's say for something like database activity monitoring, you can also have something like that, also protecting you on the workloads on the cloud. And also things like application security and all that. So generally, we can provide solutions around that space.
Yeah, so he has emphasized a little more and says primary and DR.
So usually, again, I mentioned that throughout my presentation, we usually recommend up to 10 kilometers, but this is not because of the security limitation, but because of the optic latency. And for data centers, we recommend to keep up to 10 kilometers. Beyond that, again, there might be some latency which is driven from the optical transceivers, but nothing to do with security. So it's a physical limitation.
Okay. Bonventure, just type in the window if you're comfortable. If not, with your own solution. If not, we will come back to you. We do have another question here from Mamo. Now that the technology is becoming cloud and all whatever resources that we have, what we have to use and running is going to be hosted on the cloud. This means that all security risk and aspects is going to be given the cloud owner. So what do you suggest from a security from security from this aspect for those who do not have their own cloud?
So we do have under the Maestro, we have the option to have several security groups. Each one is dedicated for different aspects of the network. We can have one security group taking care for all the in-premise appliances, while the other security group, this is something that I had in my slide that I needed to skip. So we can have another security group for the cloud traffic. So one Maestro system can manage multiple sources of traffic. We can have the in-premise, we can have the cloud, a private cloud, a public cloud, and for each and every one of them to have dedicated appliance to manage their security. So you can manage both your in-premise gateways as well as the cloud, public or private cloud traffic.
Okay, then another question for you, Yaron. Why is the amount of data in GBPS a factor when choosing the equipment from checkpoints?
So the equipment security gateways is mainly about how fast can you process packets coming into the organization. And it's all about processing power, and processing power is measured in megabit per second in the past, and in today's world it's gigabit per second. How many gigabit per second can you process? And it means it gives you a way to evaluate the throughput that this appliance or this solution can handle on a per second base. And then you can evaluate, okay, what is the traffic running in my data center? So based on that, you can analyze which size of appliance or size of Maestro solution you need in order to protect your data center.
Great. I think, let me see. I see one more question has just popped in. No, I think we are good. I hope.
Just Laura, just
yes?
to put some emphasis on the question from Mamu.
Okay.
Yeah. So he was asking, what do you suggest security from this aspect for those who do not have their own cloud? So what I would say around this is the data in your if your workload is sitting on the cloud, the data inside the workload is the responsibility of the customer to manage, to protect. Sorry. So you need to also have solutions that can protect the usage of those data sitting on the workloads on the cloud. That is also where we come in as Data Group IT. We have solutions that can protect the usage of the data even though they're sitting on the cloud. Secondly, you need to protect the endpoints that you're using to access the cloud, because if the endpoint is compromised, of course, it will lead to the compromise of the cloud environment or your password or whatever you use to log on, or even the multi-factor authentication. So you need to take preventive measures to make sure that your data and the usage of your data is protected in any way.
Okay, so I see two more questions. So we are a little bit past our time, but we'll request for 5 more minutes so we can answer these questions and close the session. So there's a question from Arnold. Is there any risk if you're an organization that just uses the appliance firewall alone in the times we are in?
I'm not sure I understand the questions. What do you mean use the appliance firewall? Meaning firewall security instead of IPS, next generation or higher level of security? Then I would say, yes, you are very much exposed, because firewall only is not enough in today's attacks. You need to have a much higher layer of security. Firewall is something from 6, 7, or 10 years ago, whereas in today's world, you must have a higher level NGTX or SandBlast to protect you with.
Henry has a question. Using Maestro, can we have different members in a hyper-converged cluster as active gateway in primary DC and standby gateway in DR? For say internet banking, and then for another service, say supplier portal, have its active member on the DR site and the standby member on the primary DC. And then we have one question from Tepe. Do you have a solution for SIM boxing issue for telecom companies?
Yes, we do. Please approach me, and I will. We do have a special team working with telecommunication, and they can work with you on setting the solution for you. So please contact me directly, and I'll be more than happy.
Okay, and then one last question from Morgus. As I understand from your presentation, as the number of gateway enhance, you mean that the security will be more reliable. Can you see it?
No.
If you go to the public chat window, there's a question from Moges.
Is there any risk? Arnold, Mamo.
Just go to the bottom. There's one question just above Mamo's thank you.
Q&A.
No, public chat.
So Yaron is asking from the presentation, as the number of gateways increase, I think so, you mean the security will be more reliable. I think that's what he's trying to say.
So there is a question from Hector regarding pricing. That's the one?
Okay, you can answer that, but also just above Hector, there's another one by Moges.
Yeah, it means that, so the Maestro enables you, it's not only more reliable, but more cost effective, because unlike any other traditional cluster that you need to have inactive or standby appliances standing there, and it's a very expensive machine doing nothing, just being on standby in case there is a failure on the active appliance. In case of Maestro, all the appliances are active, so you don't need to waste money for something that would be just a very expensive furniture out there. All the appliances are active, all of them are working, all their CPU throughput is calculated, and it's a huge cost saving for many organizations.
There's one last question from Andrew Jagi. How do you compare the adoption of cloud security as compared to on-premise firewalls?
So it depends on the geographic. In US, we see a relatively large adoption for cloud, whereas in EMEA, which is Europe and Africa, we see relatively smaller acceptance of cloud, more rely on the in-premise. So it's quite pending on the geographic. There is no clear answer. But in Africa region, we do see a relatively lower penetration for the cloud-based solutions.
All right. So on that note, I think I'm going to close this session. There's a lot of engagement going on, but I do know that, Yaron, you have another meeting to go to.
Yeah.
And we have to give back our attendees their time. They've been very patient with us. They've been very engaging. Thank you so much to our two speakers, Yaron and Chibuzo. Thank you to DGIT for hosting this session. Thank you to our attendees. You've been such an amazing crowd, and I can see we have attendees from, across East Africa up to West Africa. This is so exciting. We will send you a feedback form. I know there's lots of questions that are still pending, and I know some of you are not comfortable asking the questions in a forum like this, especially because it is a security-related session. So we will send you a feedback form. Please put any comments that you have there. Please put any questions that you have there with your contacts clearly so that we can connect you to Yaron and Chibuzo so that they can be able to assist you where necessary. I can see a few people want to engage with you directly. And then on top of that, please do share also general feedback with CIO East Africa so that we continue having relevant sessions for you and to make sure that you're engaged properly and you have relevant content that addresses your current issues, especially in this situation where we're all working from home. Finally, we do have a session tomorrow on the digital tax that has been introduced in Kenya. So for those in Kenya, we'll be having a discussion tomorrow on what the implications of the digital on taxing the digital economy means. So please do join us tomorrow at 11 o'clock. If you haven't registered, please register. We will share a recording of today's session with you on email. So you can go back, review that session. And if you have any questions again, please feel free to reach out to our two presenters. You do have their contacts. Thank you once again for your time. Wishing you all a lovely evening. We'll see some of you tomorrow and we will see some of you next week at our next session. Take care and have a good evening.